Me and my wife both are excited to be back at Hortons Chapel. Um, we've had the privilege of staying the past few days with Gary, and we always enjoy getting to come back and be with Gary and to catch up with Gary. He's been a long friend of the family. We also enjoyed Friday. We got to see some of the parents who brought their kids here. We really love getting to meet and hang out and see y'all guys again. And we encourage you that after service to come up and see us and talk to us. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. We're always open to talk about the work, and we just appreciate and love you guys for everything you do for us and the work there in Africa. I'm gonna do a quick review for some, because I know there's maybe some new people here. My wife and I 2 years ago decided to work in Arusha, Tanzania. We went to work with the Andrew Conley School of Preaching. This is a Bear Valley school. The school is accredited from a congregation in Colorado called Bear Valley. The school actually offers a bachelor's degree and a master's degree as well, and it's accredited from the states. So they're not just getting a certificate, they're actually getting a degree that's honored by Tanzania and here in the state of Colorado. The vision, the idea of this school is that preachers are being trained where they're from. So they come to the school, they get trained, and then they get sent back out to their villages and start congregations. We're giving the locals the tools and the knowledge they need to be successful in evangelizing their own people and starting their own churches and spreading the gospel throughout their own area. Kind of an example of the way this school works. There's a man, he's from Bonga, it's a couple hours away. This man came to the school. He went to the school, got his degree, went back to a place where there was no church. He was able to go back and establish a church. Since that church was established, and this congregation is about 2 hours away, he is now, after this year, sent 9 other men who have come to the church or come to the school. And since coming to school, these men have all went back and set up congregation as well. So by one man coming to the school, gaining the education, gaining the knowledge he needed to be successful, went back out, was able to start a congregation. He sent 9 other men who've been converted and then came to school and went out and started their own congregations. So just by the one man coming to school, getting the education, getting the tools he needed, he's then been able to go back and start these other congregations by sending other men who are able to get the tools and things they need by coming to the school. Now, the goal of the work has always been that it's been self-governed. Since the start of this work by Brother Si Stafford, he always had the vision that this work would be run by locals, and that has come to is what is happening now. We have 2 men who are who run the school. We have a dean of students, dean in academics. Almost all the classes are being taught by the locals who have been through and got their master's degree. So the school is now being run and could run without any sort of American help, because they're doing their own governing, they're doing their own teaching, and that is something that has always been the goal of the work. The next side of this is we were asked to come, and this is kind of where we come into play. We were asked to come help with the self-sufficiency of the school. One thing is always true: things need money to run. So I also had this vision that, if the locals are running the school, they should be able to support the school as well. And we've agreed to come on and do that with farming projects. We set up several different things to try to cut into the budget, and that was kind of our first year goal. Within 6 months, we replaced most of the food that the school was using, and so we were asked to sign on for 3 more years to take this work to another level. The goal, the vision, the end game of this is that the school could possibly completely off American funds and continue to run. I know that's a big goal, but through the farming and through some different areas that we have planned, that is the hope. That one day that this work, because this is a great work, since the start of this work, there's been over 200 graduates. There's been hundreds of churches set up, not only in Arusha now, there's been churches set up all over East Africa. There's been other schools that have been started because of graduates from the Andrew Conley School of Preaching. And the church in East Africa is growing because of these guys who are coming out of these schools and going and evangelizing. And we want to see that continue. And the only way that we can see that continue is to ensure that this thing can be here forever. And that's kind of our end goal. Our vision is that no matter what happens here in the States, that this is theirs and they can run this and they can continue. This great work can continue from now until forever is the goal. And so we were asked to come and do a farming project to try to cut into the cost to run this school. So I'm going to show some pictures of last year versus this year and some of the things that we've been able to accomplish. When we got there, this was just a field. Everything behind the school was not being utilized at all. And so we had to go through and cut all the trees down. We did this with a machete, a real long, sharp knife. The machete there is the same thing as we think of here. Actually, my brother came and visited, and this was the first time he'd been there. We were going to cut some trees. We were clearing some trees to put in an orchard. And I'll show you some pictures of that in a minute. But we gave him the machete, and he's like, we need to cut this tree down. So he walked over the tree, hit it about 5 or 6 times, and started laughing and brought us back the machete. He said, okay, you got me. That was a joke. And like he hit it and not even knocked the bark off the tree. These are not baby trees. These are big trees that have been there for a long time. And so we had to show him that, no, if we're serious, this is how we really cut the trees down. So after a couple hours of hitting around the tree, and then we dig up around it, and we have to cut the roots long enough that we can pull the car down there or pull the tractor and be able to pull the roots out. So it's a long process. It's a lot of hard work. All of us have really big forearms and usually small stomachs. Now, I've been in the States long enough now that it's starting to grow back, but as soon as we get back, hopefully we can cut that down. And so this is one of the projects that we're doing. We're putting in raised beds. This was a picture of last year. We put all these in last year. We had around 30 last year. So we grow all the greens for the school. We use the raised beds for 2 reasons. One, to conserve water. We use the drip lines, and we're putting manure and compost into the soil. And also during our rainy season, we get a lot of rain really fast, so it floods. The hard pan there is on top. I mean, you walk out, it rains all night, you walk out, you push over a little dirt, and it's dry already. So the hard pan is the very top of the ground. So we do this to raise up the beds so that when it does rain really fast, we have trenches and stuff that we've dug that runs the water out of the beds. Just like having no water, having too much water causes the same problem when you have water stand. It takes about a day to put these beds in. With 4 of us guys working on one bed, it takes right at a day. The soil there is kind of like a mixture between concrete and asphalt. It is very, very, very hard. So when you hit it, with a pick, with a 3-pronged thing we call a rato, and a hoe and a shovel, that's all that we have. And so putting these things in is very, very, very hard. So it takes about a day. So this is about 30 days worth of work. You can see we've also put the buckets in. It's taken us several hours a day to carry the water to the buckets. And so if you see the new, this is the same area, but we evened things out so it looks more uniform. We extended the beds. We also added 10 more beds this year, so now we have 40. This is enough now that we're growing all the greens. We're also added, we're growing tea for the school. This used to be a British colony. The one thing that stuck is they take tea time every day. So we're growing all the lemongrass that they use to make their tea every morning. So we've cut that off the budget as well as growing the greens and the vegetables for the school. You see here too, there's no more buckets. What we did is we put in this drip, this water line. We have a huge tank, and all we have to do now is turn on and off a switch. So a lot of this year we were spending on making things more practical. At first we were doing it as cheap as possible and to see if these things would work, and now we're trying to go back and do some of these things that make it more practical, more self-sustaining. It takes 2 or 3 hours. We're spending 2 or 3 hours a day in the morning and in the evening filling up these water buckets. Now it takes 15 minutes. We walk over, turn it, the guy walks around, cleans the beds for a little while, then walks back and closes it. In the morning and the evenings, it's that easy. Now when we put this in, we got a price from the local irrigation company to come out and do this for us, and it's about $7,000 to do this. The stuff over there is expensive for irrigation because it's just not a lot of people are doing it. So in Africa we have a saying, use what you have. Well, at that time we did not have any money, and so what we did was we went and bought this pipe in town. This is just a normal water pipe that they would use, and we took a pair of needle nose pliers and we pushed in a hole in the pipe and reamed it out real good, and then slid the drip pipes, which we got donated from the States. There's actually an NGO in the States. You can buy these drip systems for, I think it's $10 a system. So it comes with 2 hoses, they're real long. And but it's the exact same thing you can get over there. So we're not bringing anything that you can't get or replace. It was just a lot cheaper, and we had a farming organization that wanted to help us. So they sent those over. We bought this pipe. Used needle nose pliers and stuck in the hose, and then once it got hot, it closed back up, so we're not having any leakage. So it worked out pretty nice, and it saved us a ton of money. So this has made this project go a lot easier now. It's not as tough and doesn't take as much time. We're free to do other things. If you look at the front, we've also started putting in seed beds. So we buy our seeds, we grow them up into small plants, and we transplant them and put them into our raised beds. So right now we're covering all the greens, tomatoes, onions, peppers, all those things for the school, and we've knocked that off the budget. And now hopefully. We started the tea, but it took it a while to get big, so hopefully when we get back, we'll be able to cover the tea as well for the school. And so this is the beds, and you can see the difference in the first year and the second year and how we expanded this project. Now this is the newest thing that we've got. The first year we were there, we did everything by hand. We tilled and plowed 2 acres. Is what we were able to clear last year. On those 2 acres, we were able to grow enough corn to last the school for right at a year. Since there was a man that came over, he saw that we were, killing ourselves with, if you think about tilling with a hoe, planting, tilling, fertilizing, ripping, all those things by hand with 4 guys, it's a lot of work. And he went out and purchased this tractor. There's actually a brand new John Deere dealership in Arusha, which is pretty cool. And so we were excited about that. He got excited about that. He said, "You know what? I'm going to buy you a tractor." So we have a tractor. It has a ripper, a tiller, and a 4-row planter. Because of that, we're able to clear off about 3 more acres this year. Where last year it took us almost a month to get the soil ready and to plant. This year we're able to get the soil ready and plant in less than it was right at 4 days for those 5 acres. All it took us to get everything ready. And it planted and fertilizes at the same time. And you notice there that Augustine, our farm manager, is driving the tractor. My father-in-law happened to be there right as we got back. He came back with us during planting season. He spent a lot of time training Augustine on how to use the tractor. So Augustine this year did all the planting, he did all the ripping and tilling, and did all these things so that he could learn to run the tractor, the things to do and not to do. We went through the equipment, how to adjust the things. There's a lot of adjustments on these things as far as the getting the spacing right on the planter and the different plates and things to use. And we taught him about all those things and how to check the oil and different maintenance and cleaning out the air filter, just the basic things that he needed to do every time before he ran the thing. And so he's very good at running the tractor, very good at running all the equipment. He doesn't need any help at all anymore. So that is something that we try to do, is teach him to do all these things. And so as we were going this year, this was a new thing, so everyone was kind of freaking out a little bit. They're like, well, this is not going to work. You're planting your corn too close, and then we're using fertilizers, which is a big no-no over there. And so the whole time I was having to fight. The locals were coming out making fun of us. The students were coming out making fun of us. Even the guys that were doing it with me were not real excited about the way we were doing things. And these are just very simple things. They plant their corn about 1.5 feet apart. They plant it really far apart, and they do that because they say that the corn needs air to breathe, is what I was told. So they were making fun of our corn. Well, you plant it too close together so it can't breathe. And so we had to deal with that issue. And then the fertilizers is a big no-no, because 90% of the time when they put fertilizers out, they just walk through and throw the fertilizer up, and it lands on the corn. And of course, if you're farmers, you know that when you pour the fertilizer on the corn, yes, it does kill the corn. It burns it. So we had to teach them where to put the fertilizer versus dumping it onto the corn. And so all those things were done. You can see we had a very, very good standard of crop. This is only 90-day corn. This is not really supposed to be this tall. And on pretty much all of our stalks, we were getting 2 big ears. So Lord definitely blessed us this year with our crop. And this year the rains were not very good as well. So in the surrounding areas, there was a famine. There's not much corn in Tanzania this year at all, because the rains were very different. We were watching the weather every day, and luckily put it in the ground. We got a couple weeks of rain, and then it went almost a month without rain. Somehow our crop was able to stand, and then we started getting the rain again, and everything came up and it did well. So you can see the guys there standing in front of the corn. This is just white field corn. So what we do is we cut it and we stack it in the big piles throughout the farm. That's cutting it with a machete again, and we carry it and stack it in these piles. And then we go back and we pull the corn off. The reason why they use white field corn, is what I've been told, is several years ago there was a famine in East Africa, and the Americans sent over yellow corn. Well, the Africans have got in their mind that that was leftover corn that the U.S. sent them. So that's poor man's corn is what they call it. Whereas if we could switch them over to yellow corn, it's way more nutrition in it. You can do the same thing with it. You can dry it out and still store it in bags. It can be used the same way, but they have this thing that they don't want to use the yellow corn. I've talked about trying to, you cannot buy the seeds in Tanzania is the problem. We've talked about transferring that, but you cannot find the seeds like you can the others. We've talked about maybe going to Kenya or Uganda or somewhere else and see if we can have it transported in enough to be able to plant our crops. So you can see us there cutting and carrying the corn. This is just the white, dry field corn. And then we pull it off and we throw it in the trailer. Last year we were having to put it in wheelbarrows, so that was a lot of fun. It took us a lot longer. This year we could stay out there all day, throw it in the trailer, and then we pull the tractor and push it off onto our tarps. So it made it a lot quicker. We're very blessed that several of these churches and individuals have seen the labor that we're putting into things and have donated money to make things run a little smoother and be a little easier. So you can see there we just lay the corn out. We let it dry for several days more once we pull it. And then we have a machine that we put it into. It shoots the corn one side and then the cob on the other. And then we use the cobs for cooking. So everything we have there, we don't waste anything. So the cobs actually make really good like charcoal. We have several events at the school. The school has a lot of functions. We have a future preacher training camps. We have boys come for a whole week. We feed them every day, and we have to cook outside for that. We use it for that. We have a youth camp every year. So there's boys and girls. There are several hundred for a week. We have to feed them 3 times a day. So we cook outside, so we use that for that. We have a leadership conference where we have men and women coming from all over the world to hear about just different topics and stuff. It's a lot like PTP or Foxshire lectureships or things like that, but it's hosted there at the school. And so we have graduation and different functions that the school has. We use these for the cooking. That saves us on firewood. We're not having to go out and buy firewood and stuff like that, and it can be used. So we have a huge stack in the back of the school of these cobs that we pull out every time we need to have any kind of function at the school. This year we were very blessed, and in the 5 acres we were able to harvest 85 bags of corn. These bags are 100 kilos, so 220 pounds. The way they measure it, you take a 20-liter bucket, you fill it up to the very top, and 6 of those go into a bag. And so each of these bags are 6 20-liter buckets of corn. This is enough for the school to last the school for about a little bit over 3 years. So just on that little bit of property, now that we've been able to cultivate more land, having the use of the tractor, making things a lot easier, we were able this year without good rains at all to produce enough to last the school for 3 years. And with these new bags that they've just come out with they're actually 3 layered, so there's 2 layers of plastic and then 1 layer of mesh. We close up both layers, and then we're able to store them. We store them up, we put rat poison underneath, and it keeps the rats out on the bottom, and then on the bags, the bugs are not able to get into because there's no oxygen. We tie those bags off. If there are a few bugs inside they'll die, and they get cleaned out later when they grind these up and turn it into ugali. So the Lord definitely blessed us this year in the harvest, and we're excited to see all the fruits of all this labor, and then to help the school for the next 3 years, especially in Tanzania with the shortage. Since we've been there this year, when we first got in Tanzania, corn was right at 50,000-60,000 a bag for one of these bags. Right before the harvest this year, it got up to 120, and last year we had a good harvest, and so it doubled in price. And so, but this year they're thinking it's going to be even worse now that the country as a whole did not produce as much corn. So the school is set, and this should save us a lot of money for the future going forward. Some of the other projects that we're doing is the cow house, where we're growing cows. When we got there, we started off with a male and 2 females. Now we're up to 11 cows. We have 1 male, and we have the 10 females. 4 of them that we're milking. We produced 4 new ones this year. They produced 4 new females this year. And so that project is growing as well. Another thing we were able to do with the corn is we saved all the stalks. That's why we're stacking up in piles. Then we have a chipper that someone donated. We bring the chipper up, run it through, And then we put it in these bags, and then we feed the corn stalks with molasses and milk minerals to get them through the dry season. During the dry season, it's a zero graze method. During the rainy season, we have pastures that we turn them loose in. You can see this new house, the big, or for the water, they share water, and then they get their own feed as well. So here's some of our new babies this year. So like I said, we're up to 11 dairy cows, and we have some dairy goats as well. Right now, we're up to 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. And so, and if you look in the picture, you can see the small wooden house is the goat house, and then the big house is for the cattle. One of the projects that we've had a lot of success with the first year, we kind of had a little bit setback this year. That was a chicken project growing the eggs. Now, this is the house that we have for them. During our first heavy rain we got this year, the ditches backed up. Some trash got into the ditch, it clogged up, and then the water went over the ditch, went out to our fields, and from our fields went into our chicken house. So you can see the dark line on the chicken house. It got all the way up to the windows in there. So because of this, we lost several chickens. When we got there that morning, there was a few swimming around. They looked like little ducks. We were able to pull them out, dry them off. They never really laid great again, but we still were getting some eggs, enough to keep the business running. But it took us we pumped this water out. We have a water pump for almost 2 days to get all this water out of here. So it was a lot of water in this area. So we had to restart this project. Before I leave this slide, I want to show you some new things we've added to this as well. If you look at the tank there, we were spending several hours a day, 5 times a day, we're having to bring water to the chickens. We put in automatic waters now, so the chickens continually have water. We also put solar on the roof as kind of a experiment to see how it would work there. So the solar runs the chicken house. It runs the electrical going around the fence. It also runs, we have a barn there. It runs the lights and that as well. And this is kind of an experiment to see how good it would do to eventually take the school to solar. So we've been trying this for a year, and it's worked great. Everything has worked well. So now we're trying to push to have the school completely run on solar as well. And so to stop that from happening, we went through and dug our ditches really deep out. This is a picture of out in front of our house. The ditch on the other side is 3 times that long. But I showed this picture because I thought it was cool with all the animals. So now our house is a watering hole for the Maasai who live in a 2-mile radius of us. So every day about lunchtime, there's like hundreds of cattle and goats and sheep piled up in front of our house drinking water. So it's fun to sit on the porch and watch them fight and everything. So this is the picture of that. So we went through, the 5 of us, and with picks and shovels, and dug these ditches out by hand. And so now we've dug the ditches really deep. We bought some dirt. We piled it up around the chicken house, and then built trenches to run the water out as well. So we want to make sure before we start this over, we didn't have the same problem, have to do this every year. So we've done a lot of work to fix that problem with the chickens. So now we've started new ones. This was started a long time ago. They're now actually laying, and we're getting eggs from them. So this project now has right at 600 egg layers in the house that are laying. And so this is running good again. And because of our egg quality, I know I told this story last year, but we had a vet come and visit. She saw the project. She was excited about it. We sent her home with eggs. She gets back to her house, eats some of the eggs. The next day I get a phone call. She says, how do you have chickens that lay these eggs with these yellow yolks? This is amazing. So this is a lady who's been trained by the government, supposed to be an expert in animal care, does not understand why chickens lay yellow yolked eggs. Because I've taught the guys about nutrition, we're able to produce these eggs, we're able to sell them for a lot more, and we can't keep them. The expat community buys all that we have at a lot higher price, and we're able to sell everything that we can produce. So this project basically funds a lot of the other projects as we're getting them up and running and started. Another thing that we've done this year that we added an orchard. So all this stuff was trees. This is the lot I was talking about. From where I'm standing all the way down to the end of the chicken house used to be trees. We cleared all this out this year, and we planted over 200 fruit trees. My brother-in-law owns an orchard down in Augusta, Georgia. He came and helped us set all this up and plant the trees and teach the guys about caring for trees and different things like that. So we planted banana trees, 3 different types. We have red bananas, yellow bananas, and plantains, what they use for cooking. We've also planted some avocados, oranges, figs. I'm probably missing a few of them, but we planted over 200 fruit trees. And we also planted a bunch of plant-based, so it's hard to tell, but you can put them in anything and it adds all kinds of vitamins and nutrition to their meals. Their main source of eating, their main meal is ugali, which is just dry corn. They take the corn that we have, they grind it to powder, they boil it in water. It's a lot like grits that have been left out for 2 or 3 days. They're real sticky and hard, and you just roll them up. And so it has no nutritional value at all. If you take these trees, you add the powder into it, it makes it super healthy for them. The vision for that is that there's an orphanage going on the back side of the property, hopefully in a year or two, and the goal is to be able to provide these for the kids as they're growing, add to their porridge, add to the ugali to help them grow up stronger and more healthy. And so we put all these trees in. With that big tank you see there in front of the chicken house is how we water those. We've run lines now to these, and we same as other. We turn the hose, it feeds it to the trees. So we water them a couple times a week to make sure that they're growing up good. And so we're excited about this. We've also, I don't have a picture of it, but we put in, we tore down a place that used to be the parking and put a bigger parking area. And that old place, we put in kind of a block area, and we filled it with dirt, and we planted a bunch of different herbs and things so that the cooks can use there in the kitchen. So we have like a kind of it's a pretty large herb garden now as well. So we're growing all the fruits, the vegetables, hopefully all the fruits in a couple of years. We're growing all the vegetables, the corn. We're getting the milk from the cows, the eggs from the chickens. We also grow about 300 broilers a month. I don't have a picture of that, but we do that as well. So we provide all the meat for the school as well. So we're feeding about 60 people 3 times a day with the tea and the milk. And then with the 2 full meals, they get ugali, beans, rice, corn, and meat and different things of that nature. Some of the future plans that we have, because of the chickens, we're still wanting to start pigs and turkeys as well. We have a deal with one of the local butchers. He'll buy turkeys from us for $100 a piece, just because they're hard to get there. And during Christmas and Thanksgiving, the expats want to buy turkeys, but there's not a lot of them available. So we've talked to the local butcher and had that arranged where we could sell them for $100 to him. Also, he grows he has pigs as well, and we're trying to work out a deal we could grow for him. So we're trying to get in the market growing specifically for him. That way we have a designated buyer. He'll actually we'll buy the piglets and the stuff from him, then we'll grow them out, and he'll pay us back or buy them from us once they're full grown. So we're working on those deals as well. Also, something I'm really excited about, we just got news. We've been talking to a friend of ours who has some land up in Karatu, has several hundred acres. The way the government works there, if you're not using your land, they can take it from you and give it to someone who will use the land. So we've worked out a deal, hopefully with him, we'll finalize when we get back, about having several hundred acres about 2 hours away that we can grow corn and beans and stuff on to be able to use to sell to bring some more income in for the school. Now that we have the tractor, the 5 acres is it can be used to do a lot more. And so we've got this deal with him that we're going to be traveling up there, and in that place we can plant 2 times a year because of the rain. The soil's a whole lot better. So if we're able to go out and do that, that would raise a lot of income and be able to completely pull the food and stuff off of the school is what we're hoping. So those are some of the things. Also, we had two individuals who've donated so right around $125,000 worth of match funds. And with that money, what they want to see done is they're wanting to put the solar in at the school and also dig the well at the school as well. So because of new technology, we found out that we actually have water on our place. And so that would take off the solar, the power from the budget, and the water from the budget, which are huge, 2 big, huge line items for our cost. As long with the food and stuff that we're doing, that would be huge as far as the overall budget as well. And so those are 2 of the projects that we're trying to do moving forward. And also now that we have more cattle, I'm doing some biogas stuff for the cooking as well. So that's kind of the overview of the farming project. All this stuff that we're doing is for the school, is for the preacher training school. We're trying to do these things to ensure that this school can be there forever is the goal. And through these different projects and through these different things. And as we're doing these things, we're training men to run each project, and we're training a man to be in my position. In order for this to work, the locals have to be the one that take these over and have this knowledge. So there are local guys who are training to do these things. we're still going out. We're teaching the preaching students. I have a class with them once a year, and we talk about all the farming things. We're still going out to local churches and teaching some seminars as well for the local churches, for their individuals, and we're putting the gardens at the church. They can use it for either some of the poorer members of the community. They can use it for church functions, or use it to be kind of a benevolence for the church and be a light out in the community, providing food and stuff for the local in their village. This is something cool that we got to do this year. We were able to go do some seminars at an orphanage. This is an orphanage on the other side of town. We designed and put these raised beds in for them. We've also done some training and stuff with about the cows and the chickens and stuff with them. So you see they have a cow house and chicken house. And so this was put in, I always forget, I get August or October, as it was put in August. So you can see that it's already coming up and doing well. There's some pictures of the kids pulling the vegetables out of their new raised beds. This is Godfrey. He's one of the teachers and preachers in the local area. He was my translator during the teaching of the students, and he asked me this year to help him with his garden. He has about a quarter to a half of an acre. It's a very small plot. And last year he was able to produce 3 buckets of corn on his property. And he heard these things. He asked would I help him, and I told him, I'll come help you this year. And we've talked about spacing and the fertilizer and the different seed he needed to use based off where he was. So we planted his place. The whole time people were coming around making fun of him. Actually, the village leader, chief, came and said, if I knew that you were going to plant this way, I would have gave you my land to plant because I need corn for my cows. So he's basically saying that the corn wouldn't grow and he would have leftovers that his cows could eat. And so the corn came up, then he went back and put fertilizer on it. Well, that was a big deal as well. They were making fun of him, telling him he didn't know what he was doing. The corn then came up and it's time to harvest. And last year on the same piece of property, he was able to produce 3 buckets of corn. This year he was able to produce 24 buckets of corn. So it was a huge difference. So then everyone in the village was coming by calling him a witch doctor. And so he had to go back and be like, no, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. So they've invited us to come in and do a seminar. The village leader has invited me and Godfrey to come in and do a seminar about farming in his local area. So we're excited about going over there and getting in with that village. And also there's no church in that area, so we're hoping that leads to us being able to spread the gospel. And once we were able to get in there and meet these people. So we're excited about that. That'll happen as soon as we get back. But just on a personal level, he was able to go from not producing enough to help his family for a month or two to where he has enough to last all year and then has some left over to share or to sell as well. So just by doing these very simple things of planting your corn a little bit closer together, understanding how to use fertilizers, different things like that, he was able to produce a lot more. We're still going out doing the children's seminars. My wife is teaching the children and then also teaching the women how to teach the children. One of our goals was to be able to go out and visit all the churches in the 2-hour radius. We're able to accomplish that this year. We wanted to go out, encourage, meet, and greet all the local congregations, all the local Christians. Since we're new there, be able to see where they are, be able to contact them and talk to them. So we were able to go out and visit all these churches this year. So we're still continuing doing those. Some more pictures from this year's seminars. Because of that, we've been able to do a lot of studies, and there have been a lot of baptisms that have led out of these studies because the parents bring their kids are inside learning, and then I study with the parents as they're sitting out waiting on their kids to get done. So it's been a cool effort to be able to team up with all these local congregations and get to encourage them and meet them and work with them in evangelism and teaching their children and teaching the women how to teach the children. One cool thing that my wife has started doing this year, the laws are a little different in Africa. If one student in your school is from your church, you're allowed to go teach once a week at the school. This is our local school. It's called School of Milk. And so my wife has started going over there along with 2 other members from the congregation where we attend, teaching the younger kids. And then one of the husbands of one of the other ladies is going and teaching the upper level kids. And so she has about 120 kids in her room. And so this has been a great outreach for the church. She does a great job with them. Actually, when the other denominations heard that the Church of Christ was coming in and teaching these kids, they got kind of jealous and said, we're going to send people over there to teach as well, because no one was doing this when we started doing this. And so all these other denominations sent in these teachers. Well, all the kids were coming to Anna's classroom, and none of them would go to the other teacher's classroom. So actually, the teacher came and was like, who goes to this church? Who goes to that church? You need to go to wherever you go to church at. And all the little kids just sit there with their hands down and wouldn't raise their hand. And one of the teachers even said, well, you go to church with me. I know you don't go to this church. And he goes, oh, no, I go to this church. So they wouldn't leave the classroom. They wanted to be in her class. She asked me to go teach for her one day, and this kind of tells how good she is. Because I feel like I'm a good teacher sometimes. I taught kids for 2 years. I've done that for a living. I walk in, and I'm sitting there, and all these kids start coming in the classroom, and they're like, well, where's Anna? I was like, well, she couldn't be here today, but I'm her husband. I'm going to be teaching today. And the kids just turn around and walk right out the room. They wouldn't even stay there. They didn't give me a chance. So they really love Anna. They love getting to hear her. She does a great job teaching them. Through this work, through the little kids, not through the little kids, but through the older kids with one of the other ladies that's going husband, there's been 6 kids that have been baptized from this school. So this is something that we're looking to expand, to go out to some of these other churches or some of these other schools and get into some of these other schools and start these kids off with a good knowledge and good basis for understanding the Bible. And so this is something that we've been excited about. Now, another thing that we've been doing, there's a lot of people come through this work. There's groups in and out year round. I think we were by ourselves for about 60 days this year. So all the other days there was someone at the work from the States, either staying in our house or staying at the school that we were helping to facilitate the work that they were doing. So there's a lot of people coming in and out. So there's a lot of Bible studies happening nonstop. Because of that, there's a lot of people being baptized in this local area. Because we're there year round, because we're on the ground, one of the things our focus is kind of shifted to, now we're still doing Bible studies, we're still doing evangelism, but we spent a lot of time this year doing follow-up studies, doing encouragement lessons with these new Christians. The Bible says to go out and make disciples, and that does not stop with baptizing. That's a continual process. And we don't want these people just to be numbers that are brought back and presented to the States. We want these to be faithful members of the church. So we've dedicated a lot of our time, a lot of our effort to following up with these people, to studying with these people. The reason why we have these two pictured on here is because this is kind of, these people have really been encouragement to us this year. They were actually taught by my wife's mother when she came in January. So since January, my wife has been going back to them doing studies every week. Once a week, she's been going back and spending an hour in their home studying with them. Now, if you ever get to go to Africa, you'll understand this. Through just by showing up at their house, there's been 6 other ladies converted just by going to their house and encouragement, because when they see you going to their house, they say, well, what are you doing? Can we study with you? And they've been sitting in here in these studies. But these ladies have been faithful this entire year at the Kisongo congregation where we attend. They have been volunteering to do things within the church now, teaching in different areas as well. And they also, when we had the campaigns this year in Arusha in November, they were the ones that gave up their jobs and were traveled a pretty good ways on these buses that they have to come and cook for the congregation there and represent the church at Kisongo. So you can see that these ladies have been a huge encouragement to us as we've been following up, doing these follow-up studies, that they are the ones who are excited about being Christians, excited about doing these different things and volunteering themselves. And this is something that we've been trying to focus hard on this year, is going to these people who have been baptized and making sure that they're remaining faithful members and doing all these follow-up studies and stuff as well. The last thing that we'll talk about here for a second, I know my time's about to run up. Another thing that we've been involved in, or I've been involved in, is just like with the school, we want to see the school reach a point where it's self-governing, and we see that now with the locals are running the school and being self-sufficient with the farming project and the different areas and knocking the budget lines off. We're also trying to do the same thing with the local churches. When these churches were started, they were small, they had no money, they were not able to support their own preachers. And so we've been working with some of the larger congregations as far as setting up budgets, helping them with classes, with leadership classes, with elders classes, so they can put in place elders in their churches. And we feel like these things are all necessary for these churches to reach that point as well of being self-sufficient, self-governing, and reaching the biblical model. So we've this year in Arusha, we were actually traveling out And the whole way back, the trip was about 2.5 hours. And on the way back, I was in the back seat with the preacher from Arusha. He started talking to me about, I think we're ready to have elders. And we put up a game plan, put together some curriculum. Gary has sent me some material. And he has went back and taught those things to his congregation. As Americans have come over, I've been pushing them to go to leadership seminars, do elder seminars at the Arusha church. So there's been several seminars at that church this year. And we're excited that they have selected 4 men now to be the first. They're the first elders in the Arusha region. So that's a huge step towards maturity of the churches. And I'm hoping that since one church seen the model, these other churches will start following that model as well. And this is the church that we attend, is Kisongo. It's a growing congregation. When we got there, it was about 50, 75 members. Now there's around 200 members. And I've started going to their men's business meetings. I was asked to do that about halfway through this year. If you know anything about me, that is not something that I enjoy. If you've never got to be a part of an African meeting, you're not missing much. They're very long, and everyone wants to say the same thing the next person just said. And if someone ever breaks it and says something different, then everyone else has to go around and say the exact same thing again. So the first men's business meeting I sat in, we got out of church, and I got back home to Anna about 6, 7 o'clock that evening. It was long. And so, but I've been bearing through that because I want to see these guys, and they've invited me into their meetings. They see me now as a member of their congregation, not as a missionary there. And the end of the year, I was super encouraged because they wanted to set some goals for this next year. Some of the goals that the men of the congregation have set is they want to set a budget. They want to start building their own building. As you can see, I'm actually standing up because there's no seats in the building that morning, Sunday morning. And they're wanting, so in the budget that we've set up with the men, they have a line item for putting money back every month for their building their building. They're also wanting to pay their own preacher. So on that, we have a line item where they're putting money back to start supporting their own preacher. Not enough that they can pull completely off American support, but so they can help him. And then the vision is, once the building is built, we'll pull that other money over and put those together to be a salary for a preacher. And we start in February. We're going to start leadership classes as well as elders classes on their class sessions to start getting them prepared, start getting the congregation thinking about selecting elders by the end of the next year for the Kisongo congregation. So we're super excited about the growth, not only with the school and the farming, but the growth and maturity we see in the churches as well in the Arusha area. And these are kind of the things that we've been focused on and been doing for this past year. Now we have a lot of other things. I could probably talk for 2 or 3 hours about everything that we're doing with all the groups coming over and the different things. But these are some of the things that we love and we feel like are the most dearest to our heart that we're involved in. And so I appreciate your listening and attention. Since this is class, can I ask questions? Is that okay? Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything? If not, thank you very much for your attention. And if you do think of anything later, feel free to ask me around anything. Thank y'all.